The St. Louis Blues future looks absolutely terrifying. It's heading into the World Juniors. The Blues have multiple prospects ready to stand tall, just showing a glimpse on how strong this prospect pool is on this team heading into the future. But not only that, we're going to break down a massive implication heading in after the Christmas break as the St. Louis Blues have must-win games to continue climbing the standings. We're going to break down everything you need to know on these prospects and so much more in this episode. So Darius, let's just dive straight into it today and let's touch on the World Juniors. Now, looking at this, the St. Louis Blues have multiple prospects heading in. Adam Jiricek coming through with Härenstam as well for Sweden. This is two prospects to keep an eye on as they continue building their stock. Now, looking at Adam Jiricek going in, we're going to see that be the final game of Friday where he takes on Canada, and it's going to be a very interesting one. Adam Jiricek had a bit of a down year last year in the OHL, not because of his performance, but of course injuries that he dealt with, but coming out of the gates with 29 points in 25 games, including 10 goals. What is your first thoughts on Adam Jiricek's development and him just going into the World Juniors to make an even more name of himself?
Yeah, and obviously this is a very exciting tournament and a tournament where you get a look at your future stars of your team, right? And the Blues do have, if you are a Blues fan, of course, if you're watching this, you have invested interest in a couple of these guys. And to start with Adam Jiricek, because I want to get to Harenstam in a second, but Adam Jiricek is a smooth skating defenseman, a little bit on the smaller side in terms of his weight. Obviously, 6'3", still filling into his frame at 19 years old, but he's having a phenomenal season in the OHL, like you alluded to before, and obviously on one of the best teams in the league as well. I would expect them to go very far this year. They loaded up on a ton of NHL caliber talent at the start of the year via trade, and not only that, like last year coming into this year, they still have their own homegrown talent on the team as well. 70 goal scorer. They have Ben Danford now as well, who's the Toronto Maple Leafs prospect. So, I'm looking for him to make a big impact, and that's going to be one of the best games of the tournament, I think, starting off tonight. Canada and Czechia, who's now emerged as a powerhouse in junior hockey as well. So that's going to be an exciting one. Keep an eye on that one if you're a Blues fan. And again, when you look back at his stats from last year, he dealt with a lot of injury trouble coming over to the North American game, playing in the OHL. The rules are a little bit different. It's a little bit more physical, I think, too. Like the rink seems a little bit smaller at times, especially in the playoffs. So he had to adjust, and he's adjusting just fine. He has 29 points, 27 games. He's been unbelievable. So excited to see what he's going to do in this tournament because I think he's going to show out. Obviously, his brother had a great showing a couple of years ago. So keep an eye on him. I think this is obviously the world stage. I know this guy wants to show out because he's doing great things with Brantford right now, but they're playing for pride here, and he wants a gold medal. So keep an eye on Jiricek. I think he's going to have a really, really good showing in this tournament.
And it's a shame that we're not going to see Justin Carbonneau play in this game as well, because for some reason Canada did not pick him on their roster. But Jiricek's going to be very interesting to see how he develops. The World Juniors tournament is where you really make a name for yourself. This is going to be a top prospect in the NHL as he continues to develop, and I'm excited to see how he gets injected into this lineup as the years go on. But it also goes straight into Harenstam coming through with Sweden. Now the record doesn't look incredible, 8-11, but the big thing is when looking at the save percentage, 918, and coming through with the World Juniors. Now with Härenstam, we're not sure if he's going to get a big bulk of games played. Sweden has a very good team heading into this tournament, but Darius, listen, we're looking at a team that's dealing with a tiny bit of a goaltender problem. Listen, Binnington is incredible, and we know what he can bring. He's going to represent Canada heading into the Olympics. We've seen Hofer take a big step and really take over this crease, but I do like to see that in the future they have a bit of a fallback option. If Binnington, when he retires, or whatever happens with him in the future, you have a young goaltender coming through the system in the SHL to join the team. And what is your thoughts on just taking a goaltender that's looking like a bit of a steal in the 6th round?
Couple of things here. So for teams like Team USA, Team Canada, a couple of the powerhouses in this tournament, besides Sweden, they like to go, unless it's a back-to-back, with the same guy. Like they name a starter. Sweden, depending on the year, doesn't necessarily do that all the time. So I don't know what's going to happen here. But like you alluded to, when you're looking at the stats, I'm looking at save percentage. Goals against average is more of a team stat to me, or, leans more of a team stat to me. So I'm not really looking at the record because depending on, what team you're on, maybe you're on a bad team. He's having a good performance performance this year with his club team. So his save percentage looks really good. I'm excited to see what he does in this tournament as well, because like you mentioned, it has major implications on the future of what Doug Armstrong and Alex Steen want to do with the goaltending of this team, because it looks like he's supposed to be a very good prospect, a guy that can come in a couple of years, play some AHL games, get up to speed, be a really good goalie at the NHL level, which in 2 years, when those two contracts are expiring for Jordan Binnington and Joel Hofer, you can then make a decision like, okay, yeah, it's fine to trade one of them maybe at the end of next year or something like that if you're that confident in this guy. So I want to see what he has in this tournament, because honestly, I haven't watched too much of him with his club team, but I want to see what he does in this tournament, if he shows out as well, if he's a big moment player, because that's the other thing. Jordan Binnington is one of the best big moment goaltenders we've ever seen, right? And especially in this generation. So if he can have that as well, then that's going to tell me something about, what type of a goalie he is. So we'll see what he does in this tournament. High stakes. I'm excited to see the future of the Blues.
And it's exciting to see, listen, with Colton Ellis going to Buffalo this season, maybe we get that replacement, a young goaltender, the Swedish Colton Ellis, let's call him, coming over at some point. Now, the big thing, Darius, going into this tournament, this is huge. We're going to see a lot of prospects showing out, but looking at the Blues heading into a tournament, if you want to say, of games versus the Buffalo Sabres and Nashville Predators, where we're going to see must-win games when it comes to this team and the standings. Now, looking at the lineup, we're seeing a lot of guys show up. Otto Stenberg has looked incredible since joining this team, coming from the AHL. Of course, Bergen coming over from Detroit on a waiver claim is a first-line winger at this point. But what is your thoughts on just the Blues team? We're going to start getting injury players coming back. Nick Bjugstad does seem like he will rejoin this team coming out of the Christmas break, but looking at the standings, this is a team that is just a couple points behind a lot of teams. Now, Utah Mammoth is the team to catch. They have the same amount of games played. You're looking at a lot of teams with a game in hand. What is your thoughts on finally beating a couple bad teams? The Nashville Predators, the Buffalo Sabres are hot, but let's be honest, the Blues roster is better. What is your thoughts on winning two of these before that terrible game versus the Colorado Avalanche?
Well, you got a game coming up here right out of the break against the Nashville Predators, who you lost to twice, and that kind of changed my mind on the season because of how bad they've been playing. But they've actually been on a roll, the Nashville Predators. They've beaten some really good teams the last little while, and some teams that have also been struggling. So they've been picking up points. So that'll be an interesting game. Like, I think you got to pick up 2 points there. Then you're playing the Buffalo Sabres, who've also been hot, despite, these teams on paper and what they are and what we know them to be. And then a possible first round matchup against the Colorado Avalanche. Wouldn't that be interesting? But like you mentioned, when you look at the roster, coming up in the next few games here, Jordan Kyrou could possibly return from injury as well in the next couple of games. Nick Bjugstad looks like he's definitely coming back. If Bjugstad comes back, I'm interested to see what they do with the lineup, because, the obvious choice would be send some guys back down to, the AHL. But who is that? Who's coming out of the lineup? Because some of your best players have been guys that would be, in theory, the ones going back down in Bergen and Stenberg. You're not taking those two guys out of the lineup. They've probably been your best two players over the last stretch of games at this point, 3-4 games at this point. Stenberg has looked fantastic, maybe not as explosive in putting up points like a guy who has NHL experience in Bergen, but those have been your two best players, I think. Maybe Fabry too, in terms of a jolt of lightning into the lineup. So who's coming out of the lineup if Bjugstad comes back? That's pretty interesting to me. I mean, maybe Torpchenko. I don't know. It's an interesting one. Maybe you sit Buchnevich again. He's been better since that, we've been talking about him in the last little while. But I think that's an interesting decision for Montgomery when those two guys come back. I think because of the roster implications and the salary cap implications, you might have to send one of these guys who've actually been performing very well in Stenberg, let's say, for example, down to the AHL, which sucks.
And I think the big thing is, if I'm Jim Montgomery, and listen, I'm not, but the big thing looking at the roster, you have a lot of guys that are performing very well. Like you said, the obvious answer for a guy coming back from injury is to send down a young guy so you get that experience. But what we've seen from this youth movement coming through, it's going to be hard. In my opinion, I think you have to scratch a veteran that's maybe not playing up to expectations. Maybe you give Joseph a game off. You move out Sundqvist for a game. I think at the end of the day, you cannot go into the start of after this Christmas break with one of the young guys taken out of the lineup offense. What is your thoughts on this? What is your thoughts on the prospects? How many points does Adam Jiricek put up? Do we see Härenstam get in a game? And does he take over the starter crease for that team What is your thoughts on everything? Let us know down in the comments. And speaking on comments, let's go straight into comments today. I'm a Snuggroot so bad. He's my favorite by far. And listen, we're going to get a lot of players coming back from injury very soon, so it's going to be interesting. But let us know your favorite player on the current Blues in the prospect pool, anything at all time. Let us know down in the comments, and you could be featured on comments of the day. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care, Blues.